Good morning, folks. It's about 10:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming out this morning. And today's program will be Emergency Preparedness, Neighborhood Organization, Beforehand and in the Moment. Before we get started, I'd just like to go ahead and read our land acknowledgement. So, we acknowledge our presences on the traditional and contemporary homelands of the Chimicum, Scollums, Skokomish, and Snohomish peoples. We will work with all local tribes to preserve and restore historical truths and ancestral wisdom for future generations. May we learn from one another's stories and foster strong relationships with all who share this land. So, today's program we'll be learning about the basic components of working together with your neighbors to help everyone become better prepared in case of an emergency or disaster. And we are fortunate enough to have our presenters today. We have Elizabeth Binshadler. Elizabeth, my apologies if I missed. Oh, hey, well, I'm going home after this. Elizabeth moved to the Olympic Peninsula after retiring from the Defense Department in Maryland in 2012. She began working with the NPREP team in 2014, serving as a trainer and as the point person for email communications to all the neighborhood leads, in addition to leading her own NPREP neighborhood. And our co-host is Deb Stinson. Deb is a co-founder of both Local 2020 and Neighborhood Preparedness, and currently serves as a fire commissioner for East Jefferson Fire Rescue. Just a few upcoming programs that we have here, folks. So if you happen to have little ones, we are currently having Read to Rover. So they can bring their favorite book or choose one from the library, then build reading skills and confidence by reading aloud to a certified therapy dog. And that is going to be happening on Thursdays. You can register for a 30-minute session, and that will go through August 8th. And then in August as well, we're going to be having Working Families Tax Credit Free Application Assistance. So we're going to have a representative here from the Department of Revenue to help people with those types of applications. If you or you know somebody who may need that, we'll be having that on Friday, August 7th at noon. And lastly, folks, you'll find evaluation forms. I may have handed some to you. You'll find some on the chairs. At the end of the presentation, folks, if you don't mind filling out an evaluation form, let us know how we're doing here at the library. If you need pens, they're on the table back there by Elizabeth. Without further ado, folks, can you give me a warm round of applause for Elizabeth and Deb?
Thank you and welcome to everybody. Glad to see you here this morning. We're going to talk to you about neighborhood organization, as it says, beforehand and in the moment. There's more than one way to organize a neighborhood, and each has its merits and its challenges, and so we're going to talk about some of those things. So as was mentioned, NPREP is a working group of Local 2020, which is a volunteer organization that promotes community sustainability and resilience, and it has many working groups on different topics, and you can go to their website at l2020.org and see what those are if you have interest in other areas of preparedness or community sustainability. So we've been doing these talks for over a year now, and in previous sessions we've talked about the kinds of disasters most likely to affect us here in Jefferson County, and the advisability, consequently, of preparing to be self-sustaining, self-sufficient for about 30 days following a major disaster. And a major disaster is one that's going to have widespread damage. It's not just my house burned down or there's a power outage in your neighborhood. It's like the Cascadia subduction earthquake event that will affect our county, the whole peninsula, Seattle, the whole area. So we figure that if you prepare for these major disasters, you'll also be prepared for smaller events. So today we're going to talk about how neighborhood organization expands our expands on our personal and household preparedness, which we've presented before, to make a plan for the neighborhood, just like you would make a plan for yourself or your family, to have a plan for your neighborhood to come together after a major disaster, because we can help each other, and we can share all kinds of information and skills. So we're going to explore today 2 different models of neighborhood organization, which, while they're different, they're not mutually exclusive. You can do one or both, you can combine them, but they do have different characteristics. So I'm going to talk about, so this is what we've covered in the past: the personal preparedness, the household preparedness, all these sorts of things, and these, and we've talked about the local hazards in Jefferson County. These may look familiar. We've talked about them many times. Information on all of these things and detailed guidance on your personal and household preparedness is in our Think, Plan, Do, Repeat booklet that the Department of Emergency Management prepared in conjunction with us, and these are best practices for Jefferson County. You can find a lot of information on the internet. Some of it's good for Jefferson County, some of it would not be good for Jefferson County, and it can be confusing to have a million places to look, so we've combined as much as possible in one booklet here for you. This is online. You can download it for free, print it out. It has a colorful cover, but it prints just fine in black and white. Excuse me. So, NPREP, the Neighborhood Preparedness Group, strongly encourages neighborhoods to prepare in advance using the Neighbors Helping Neighbors program, which we will discuss in a moment. And under this program, neighbors support each other, they encourage each other to complete their personal and household preparedness, a la Think, Plan, Do, and get those things in order. And then once that is done, to make a neighborhood plan, to share information about maybe your needs. Do you have limited mobility, or you have other particular needs? You may need help in a disaster. And as well as about your skills and equipment, things you may own that you can share with the neighborhood. Perhaps you have nurses or doctors, whether active or retired. Perhaps you have people with carpentry skills, whatever. People with organizational skills, people with communication skills, ham radio operators. So share information about your needs as well as your skills and equipment that can help the whole neighborhood in a disaster. We realize that setting up and maintaining an organized neighborhood takes some time and some effort. We always recommend that that neighborhoods be led by 2 or 3 people working together. It's a lot for one person to do. And then, you're going to want buy-in from all your participants. Here's a clue. Not everybody in your physical neighborhood may want to participate, but that's okay. You get as many as possible. You'll be that much more prepared. Your whole neighborhood will be better off for it. And we will note that organized neighborhoods, as in Neighbors Helping Neighbors, are primarily inward-facing. They're primarily looking to take care of the needs of their own neighborhood members, though they may also realize that there might be a stranger on the street who needs some help too, but they're primarily organized to take care of your neighborhood, the same way that your family preparedness takes care of your family. This is a really important quote from the former director of the Department of Emergency Manager, Bob Hamlin. The ability to deal with a crisis is largely dependent on the structures and relationships that have been developed before the emergency. There's supposed to be, it's showing on my preview of the slide, a picture of this. I don't know why it's not showing on the screen. Whatever.
That's where you can find it.
There it is.
Oh, there we go.
It thought it was waiting for me to tell it to do it. So this is also available online. This is a very long link, but there will be another link at the end that you can use to find it. So this booklet will tell you basically how to organize a neighborhood. And the first step is getting to know your neighbors. You want maybe to start with a social occasion. Invite everyone to tea and cookies or a potluck thing. If you already have such a thing, an annual event, you know, like a picnic in your neighborhood, that's a great way to break the ice. But once you get everyone to some sort of social thing, get to know each other, take a few minutes and present the idea of organizing your neighborhood, and maybe share some documents like Neighbors Helping Neighbors or Think, Plan, Do, and get everyone interested in the idea of neighborhood preparedness, personal and household as well as neighborhood preparedness. Because after a disaster, we're going to be our own first responders. In a major disaster, our first responders are going to be spread way too thin. They're going to have more to do than there are people to do them. You know, more things to do than there are responders to do them. Which is why we say we're going to be our own first responders probably for the first 30 days. It's likely to take 30 days for outside help to come into Jefferson County in the event of a really major disaster. So sharing information before the disaster helps us be safer and more comfortable. It can save lives. But sharing is easier with people you already know and trust. So just getting to know your neighbors is a great first step. And we will say that the information, some people get a little worried collecting information about who has certain needs, who has skills and equipment. That information stays in your neighborhood. Your neighborhood leads don't report it to me. It's, you know, it's not kept at the Department of Emergency Management. We keep a list of the neighborhood leads, and we have an email list, so we can contact them to contact neighborhood members. But we don't have a list of all the neighborhood members, and we don't have a list of all the information you gather from your neighborhood members. That is held locally. And then, so you lay out this basic plan to everyone and find out who wants to move forward with this. And if you have some people who are interested in moving forward with you, then the next step is to hold more of a business meeting, an organizational meeting. You can check our online map to see if you're already in an organized neighborhood. I'll show an example of that in a moment. It's not in this slide deck. But we do have an online map where people can go plug in their address and find out if they're already in an organized neighborhood, and try to find out the name of the lead for that neighborhood so they can get in contact with that person. You're going to define the boundaries of your neighborhood, decide, you know, there may be physical geographic features that are going to make natural boundaries for your neighborhood, or maybe, you know, it's, if you're in an urban area, you know, a block or two, both sides of the street or whatever. You can print a map of your, oh, it's waiting for me to, there we go. This is a picture of the online map. And each of these balloons represents the lead of an organized neighborhood. We'll look at that in a little bit. But you're going to print a map of your neighborhood using some instructions that are in this booklet. You can go to the county website and print out a map of your neighborhood with house numbers on it. And, you know, contact us to get on the map. And, you know, once you've decided when to hold this organizational meeting, you're going to send this invitation to all your neighbors and try and get them to come. This is a map that was printed from the county website. This is the county property owner's website. So you can see there, it's got like house numbers, streets and house numbers, and so you could mark the boundaries of your neighborhood and things like that. So an agenda for organizing a neighborhood organizing meeting. You're going to introduce the Neighbors Helping Neighbors booklet. There's a household information survey that's going to ask them about their needs and skills and equipment, how many people are in their household. So everyone can fill out this brief little survey, and then on the map you can mark things like the if you have propane, where's the propane shut off. I know in my yard my propane tank is buried. If someone needed to shut off my propane in an emergency, they would need to know where that is. They wouldn't just look around and see it. So that could be important. Then you're going to select a good location for a neighborhood gathering site. Once a disaster hits, people are going to check on their own families, but then they're going to want to get together to check on the whole neighborhood. So you want a designated place for people to get together, you know, maybe my front porch, you know, if you have a covered front porch, okay, everybody come here, and then we'll decide how to fan out into the neighborhood and check on everybody. And also excuse me, a location perhaps for a neighborhood care center, if you have people who need to be cared for, whether they're mobility limited, or their children, or they're just not going to be robust enough to be walking around doing the checking on everybody else. Maybe they need to stay warm or cool. You might want to have a neighborhood care center where those people can go, and a few neighborhood members can make sure that they are comfortable and have what they need while the rest of you go about doing your checking on the other neighbors. And plan how you're going to communicate before, during, and after an emergency. You may have an email list or a text blast list, a phone tree. But after an emergency, if phone services are down, how will you communicate? Maybe you'll use family radio service radios, FRS, which we used to call walkie-talkies. Maybe you have ham radio operators. So you want to think about those things. And then after the meeting, you'll have everybody give their list, their skills and equipment list, their household survey, to the neighborhood lead. The neighborhood lead can compile that and like put it all in a spreadsheet or a Word document, and then give that to everybody, and an annotated map that shows the households in your neighborhood, and maybe an X where the location of the propane tank shutoff is. And give a copy of that to everyone, and then everyone can attach that to their copy of this booklet, so that when things go south, they just pull out the booklet and they have all the information in there. There are also the help and okay signs, which actually are in Think, Plan, Do. Help or okay, so that if after a disaster you're fine, you can post this in your front window or someplace where it can be seen, so that the people who come around and check on the neighborhood know that you're okay. They can skip you for now and go look for someone who either has a help sign up or no sign at all, because maybe they, you know, collapsed on their living room floor or something and they couldn't post that sign. But so you're going to go and check on the help and okay signs. You want to have those handy. So, as time goes on, the neighborhood members may change something. They may change their email, they may change their phone number. You've got to keep your lead informed and update it. And the lead will also be on our NPREP email list, and we send emails out to the leads about 3 times a month with things like notices of this kind of gathering, or any other information that we have that would be helpful to neighborhoods, things they might want to attend or learn. And then the neighborhood leads decide whether that's pertinent to their neighborhood, and then they forward it to their neighborhood members as appropriate. And after that, really, it's a matter of maintenance. It takes some maintenance. Things change. People forget that, oh, I did change my phone number. How many times have I gone to the doctor's office and they go, so is all your contact information the same? Oh, no, I got a new email. You know, so it's easy to forget that stuff, so it's good to have a social gathering maybe a couple of times a year to keep up to date and remind people, have you changed anything? Give us the new information. And then also just to keep encouraging each other to continue to build up your household supplies. Everyone's not going to do it overnight. It's not going to be a one-time thing. You're not going to instantly have 30 days of food and water and medicine and sanitation all ready to go, you know, the first week you do this. So you can just continue to update each other about, oh yeah, I just added another 10 gallons of water storage. You know, this is good. And I updated my grab-and-go bag. The neighborhood organization model is predicated largely on the idea that we're most likely to shelter at home if a disaster happens. The big exception to that would be something like a fire where you're going to have to evacuate. But we are looking at events where we would need to shelter at home as long as our home structure is safe, like an earthquake or a major winter storm or something like that. Even if there's a lot of damage, we can't all evacuate at once. The roads would be completely blocked, and then the emergency vehicles couldn't get through to do what they do. So a lot of this is predicated on preparing our homes, but also the grab-and-go bags and things like that under the personal preparedness speak to the possible need to evacuate if you have to grab something and run. So the idea is, if you've done all of this, then if something goes deeply south on us, the first thing you're going to do after an emergency hits or disaster hits is you're going to take care of yourself, your family, and your home. That's the first thing you're going to check on. We don't expect anyone to be heroic and come out to help everyone else till they know their own family is safe. And then you're going to grab your Neighbors Helping Neighbors booklet that has all that information about the houses in your neighborhood, and you're going to go to your neighborhood gathering site, and you're going to organize yourself into teams, at least pairs of people, no one goes out alone, to go around and check on each of the neighbors according to whatever plan you developed. If there are people who need special care, you certainly want to check on them first, check on, depending on the help and okay signs, but follow a logical method of checking on everyone in your neighborhood. And then, once you've done that, and we do encourage every neighborhood to try to have an amateur radio operator, a ham radio operator, which would enable you to communicate beyond your neighborhood. You may be blocked in your neighborhood. You may not be able to drive out or get out. And if someone in your neighborhood, someone or something, has a life-threatening emergency, you would want to be able to communicate outward to try to get some help right away. So to connect with the Department of Emergency Management via radio to get help for those life-threatening situations. The other thing that lets you do is to report if everything is pretty much hunky-dory. It's like, well, the power's out, but we're all okay. You can report that too, and that will help the Department of Emergency Management build a picture of the whole county so they know where to focus their scarce resources. So it works both ways. So you'll do all those things, you'll go to your neighborhood gathering site, you'll check on everyone, and if you have a need for a neighborhood care center, you'll set that up, and then folks who need special care can be assisted to come to the care site to be cared for. Optionally, if you have the capability or see a need to set up an emergency hub, you can do that. This is totally optional. The 9 steps are pretty much, that's the totality of the Neighbors Helping Neighbors program, but you can extend it if you are so inclined or see a need. And one of the needs for this might be, if you live in a place where there are likely to be a lot of tourists walking down the street, for instance, if you live in uptown Port Townsend, there could be people who came over on the ferry and they don't have access to their homes right away because they're stuck here. And you may be looking to care for some people who may just be wandering on the sidewalk wondering, what do I do now? So we're going to talk about emergency hubs, which are the other model. Now the neighborhood, the organized neighborhood model with Neighbors Helping Neighbors involves a good deal of advanced preparation. And one of the benefits, and I thought this quote bore repeating, one of the benefits of organizing in advance is that you already know your neighbors and you have an idea what resources you're going to have at hand if something happens. And you have a plan in place and maybe you've practiced it, so you've got some muscle memory, because as soon as a disaster hits, our brains kind of freeze. They kind of, what do I do now? So you have a plan in place and you have some muscle memory. Oh yeah, I'm going to grab my Neighbors Helping Neighbors, and it's gonna remind me to do those 9 steps in order. And the result that you have there is you have some more confidence and less confusion when the big it happens, whatever it is. So that's why we really encourage people to do this in advance. It doesn't work everywhere, and it doesn't work the same way everywhere. You're encouraged to customize this plan to suit your neighborhood. This is a guideline, it's an outline for how to get there. For what the goal is. How to get there is up to you and what works for your neighborhood. Whatever works for your neighborhood, we're all for. So let me see where I am. Oops. Let's just do that. So this is a description of just a comparison of Neighbors Helping Neighbors versus emergency hubs. And as soon as we do this, I'm going to turn it over to Deb. So I did the Neighbors Helping Neighbors with neighborhood gathering sites. You gather with people who have already participated. These are known to NPREP, and DEM will provide information to NPREP that we can then spread out to the neighborhood leads. With that, I'm going to let Deb come speak to emergency hubs, which are the other side of this preparedness coin.
Thanks, Elizabeth, great job. Hi, good to see everybody here today. So yes, I'm going to pick up on the hub discussion. I will like to say, though, I'm sitting in the back, I see people are feverishly taking notes and all, and I think that's wonderful. I just want to make sure everybody understands that this is being recorded, and as all our presentations are, they're up and available on the website, and there'll be a link available to that at the end of the presentation. So the hubs, we've done neighborhood preparedness now. We actually started this thing 20 years ago, 2006, when I realized that. I thought, oh, no wonder I have such gray hair. It's been a really wonderful program. It's been very successful. You saw the little bubbles on the map that showed all the leads that we have out there, all the neighborhoods that are out there organizing to one degree or another. And it is true, every neighborhood is different. It's very organic. There's no hard and fast rules on how you do it. You do what works in your neighborhood. But we recognized 2 things as we got a little more advanced into the program. And one of those was that the communications piece was kind of an afterthought in Neighbors Helping Neighbors, as Elizabeth kind of mentioned. We did focus so much on preparedness, we really didn't get down to the response piece. And that's really where the communications are critical. So we recognized we had that need. But the other thing we recognized too, in working with folks and doing this ourselves for this length of time, as Elizabeth said, it does take effort. It takes time and commitment and follow through and, wash, rinse, repeat. I mean, it doesn't go, it's something you have to really be committed to. And as Elizabeth said, you really can't do this alone. You need help. And sometimes it's hard to garner that in a neighborhood. That for whatever reason, you might be in a neighborhood where a lot of the homes are rentals and people are kind of coming and going. They can't make that level of commitment. And we all know we live in an aging community, and not everybody has the capacity to make long-term commitments or ongoing commitments. So we're trying to figure out what can we do to help the folks that can't do all this advanced work, but still give them a leg up when it happens, right? And so this hub model is something that we kind of derived. There's something, some models were brought forward from Seattle and Portland, which, a little bit different than, Jefferson County, but they gave us some kind of good insights on what we might be able to do. And this is a place where a couple of people, if it's just you and one neighbor, I really care about this, but nobody else is there, what can we do to both help ourselves but help those around us in the moment, right? So rather than doing all your organization and everything up ahead of time, you do a little bit. You put together a kit, you inform yourself, you put together materials, we'll talk a little bit about that, and then you become known to DEM, they know you're out there, and then you pop up. It's really, it's a pop-up emergency hub is what it is. One of the things though, you can attach this, as Elizabeth said, it can be attached to a neighborhood if you don't already have a communications function. Some of our neighborhoods, some of the big ones, already have this. They have these neighborhood operation centers, and they have 2 or 3 ham radio operators, and every block has their own FRS. I mean, some of them are this is like Calipoint, Cape George, Port Ludlow, you know, where they have more organizational capacity. A lot of folks are doing that already, but a lot of neighborhoods don't have that. And so this is a way for our smaller neighborhoods to attach this concept just for the communications piece, whether you're doing the public-facing part of it or not. So let's get on with it here. I better quit rambling and follow the slides, or it's going to get real confusing. Okay, so again, this is the organizing in the moment. And what you're doing is you're doing some initial preparedness work, preparing work, where you have put together a kit, and we have actually in the back of the room, when you leave, you can check out kind of a demo of what that kit might look like. Okay, you've done some advanced work. But what you're providing is a really safe place for people, and it says to evacuate to and or gather. I would say congregate more than evacuate. You're not providing a shelter, you're not providing a long-term place, but it's a place that, especially for those folks that we were talking about earlier that might be tourists, you know, whatnot. The sample on the front here is actually in my neighborhood, because part of my neighborhood faces Sims Way on the way out of town. Well, people are going to be coming up that hill going, what the heck's going on? And we're real close to the hospital, and they're going, oh, I can go to the hospital. We don't want them to go to the hospital. We want to intervene. We want them to stop at our place and be able to get the information they need on what's going on, what are their options, what do we know. They can share what they know, and then we can kind of divert them away from the hospital and other places that are going to be way too busy to entertain their questions. So it's really a place, you're going to provide a place where you can keep yourself informed, but also be able to share that accurate information with those people who walk up at the moment. They could be your neighbors, they could be, you know, like say anybody who just happens to be in the area. So the communications piece is key, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. You can also offer or receive resources. So one of the things that we want is, you know, people can come up and say, hey, you know, gosh, this is terrible, what's going on, how can I help? And you say, well, what do you have? And it's like, well, I see a lot of trees down, I have a chainsaw. Great, we're gonna put that on a board, and if anybody comes up and needs a chainsaw and somebody knows how to operate it, they'll come see you, okay? Thank you very much for that. Or you could say, oh my gosh, there's this tree down, you know, and 5 people need to get out, there's something going on here, they can't get out. Oh, we know somebody has a chainsaw, right? So it's that kind of, you know, needs and wants, lost and found kind of a thing. But also gain timely information, because one of the things you're going to have available in your hub is communications equipment. Whether it's going to be a crank-up FM radio and you're listening to KPTZ on the designated times to be getting the actual local information, if that's what we're down to doing, or maybe a ham operator, or other radios. There are other radio options besides ham, like GRMS. And we're not going to get into too much detail there, but you're going to have a way to get the timely and accurate information so people can come up and say, oh my gosh, you know, what are we going to do? What's happening? What's the current situation? You can give them the accurate information, because misinformation and rumors and all that can fly pretty fast and furious, and that just adds to the problem. So anytime you can give people accurate information is really going to be helpful. And the other thing that's going to be helpful there is, where can I go? Like in my situation, we have all these people coming up, Sims, where can we go? Where do we actually evacuate to? Where is going to be a collection point for us? That's the type of information a hub like this would have. It's like, yes, they're setting up shelters. Right now they're just verifying that they can be stood up. People say, well, don't we already know where all the shelters are going to be? We know where they could be. DEM has that list, and they know the people, they know who to call, they know where these places are. What they don't know is if they're gonna be viable or not. So they never publish that list, because they don't want people going there just to find out it's burned down or fallen down or has no plumbing or whatever. So they will be furnishing and pushing that information out to these hubs once the communications are up, or through KPTZ, through other communication mechanisms that not everybody's gonna have, but you're gonna have it. So I think that's really good. And then of course the communication, yes?
The last sentence, hubs can stand alone or be an extension to a prepared neighborhood.
Yes.
In terms of practicality and your experience dealing with this county, it seems like it's hard to find leaders for an NPREP, and it seems like once those leaders are found, they would be the ones most likely to also have a hub. Are there examples in this county where there are hubs but not NPREPs?
Great, thank you for that question. So the question is, do we actually have an example of this in the neighborhood, or in the county, where we have hubs that are standalone from neighborhoods? And I would say probably not, because this is a new concept. This is fairly new, we're just rolling this out. But we do know we have a lot of people that are in that situation that have come up to us, that come to a training, and they just get frustrated because their neighbors don't want to participate. Nobody's there. We want to, this is the answer for them. So, you know, there is the energy for it. We know the energy's out there, but we didn't have the tool for them. And this has been a slow roll. This has been coming out for a couple of years as we kind of figured it out. How does this all fit together? And we're just kind of getting it gelled in our own minds, frankly. But this particular model kind of marries the two concepts, but you can do hubs totally standalone, and that's the idea. And I think it just depends on where it's going to be. Like I say, if you're in a neighborhood with a lot of rentals or a lot of people kind of coming and going, I think that'd be a perfect setup, right, for that kind of a hub use. Yes?
Wouldn't schools be a logical hub?
Well, the question is, wouldn't schools be a logical hub? And there are a lot of places that will be a logical hub eventually. You know, it's just, this is like in the moment. This is like the ground shakes. And let's get on and we'll see kind of like, this is a pop-up. Schools, you know, schools are gonna be home, all those folks are gonna be home with their own families, taking care of their own homes, and they may or may not be able to get to their facility. Their facility may or may not be standing up. So, yeah, there's a lot, but your point is well taken. Yeah. So let's move on here. So where are they located? So this is kind of, again, guidance for the people that are wanting to set this up. And the idea is you want them readily discoverable. Like I said, that picture we had on the cover of the actual, you know, startup manual is ours. And that is facing right onto Sims Way. And it's got this big information, right? Well, if you don't have that kind of a location, but you still need it, you might figure out how to use the little temp cards or something. But you want it to be, you don't have it pre-published, right? Because again, you're not exactly sure where it is. You're gonna go out and maybe figure out a couple of safe locations that you would set up in. But again, it depends on what the situation is. You know, was there a flood came through that part, or a fire, whatever, you know. You have to, in the moment, decide where it is, but make sure it's readily discoverable, it's accessible, because people with mobility, you don't want to have to climb a bunch of stairs or over a bunch of rocks or something to get to you. And also in a safe location, right? You gotta, safety is kind of job number one for one of the hub managers, is to make sure anybody who, you don't want to invite them to an unsafe situation. So make it as safe as possible. And then, once you're known and once communications are available, you can call into the DEM, and this is some of the training that would come later. But the idea is you'd be able to notify the DEM that you are there and that you're up and running for whatever amount of time you think you'll be there. Just so they're aware, so if they hear of a need in that particular area, or if they know eventually, we'll talk about who shows up there, it's good for them to know that you were there. And this is a good thing too for neighborhoods to have this attached feature, because as Elizabeth said, we don't send that information to DEM. That's always been held at NPREP and in our volunteer group. So all the communication, DEM notifies us, Elizabeth turns around and sends it out to the neighborhoods. Well, that's a that's a weak link in this situation if you think about it, right? We want resilience here, so it would be nice if we could have direct DEM to neighborhoods. So the neighborhoods that choose to do a hub, or just hubs, can self-identify, get on a list with DEM so that they can have information pushed directly to them and not rely on NPREP doing that for them. And then eventually they might even publish the activated hub locations to the public. So like if KPTC is up and running and say there's a hub, you know, on this corner, in this park, you know, in this general area. If you need help, you know, get communication or need to share information, that's the best place for you to go at this moment. So when do we activate? Well, again, it's kind of like Elizabeth was saying, you know, you take care of your home and your family and everything else first, and then, but you don't wait. You don't wait for somebody to call you and say, it's time to set up your hub. You know, the earth shakes, whatever the event is, you know it's time to get out. You'll know. You'll know. Trust your judgment. Or there'll be a notice sent out that if you're a known hub operator or neighborhood, there'll be a push out, let you know when the Emergency Operations Center is being activated for a large event. That's another clue that might be a good time to get your hub ready to go. Or if it's just obvious that all the normal communication channels are down. The radio's down, the TV's down, the internet's down, cell phone towers are down. That's another time because communications is a big piece of what we need to do. Okay, so who do you find at the hub? And again, it's pretty much at the minimum are the two people that are doing this, and that's the two trained volunteers, a hub manager. Again, we talk about ensuring the safety and coordination of all the different activities that could happen there, and then you would want a lead greeter. Again, somebody who's familiar with what you're trying to accomplish there would know kind of what to say and what not to say, you know, what you don't want to overcommit, you know, that kind of thing. But you're welcoming people, and they would also be kind of like the primary point of contact as people start showing up. And this, again, could just be in a neighborhood. It doesn't necessarily have to just be tourists, or if you're in a neighborhood that didn't pre-plan, it's going to be your neighbors that are coming up, and you can greet them and you can start organizing them. And that's where we get down to organizing in the moment. So as other people come in, there'll be some just-in-time training. So, and there's some documents, we've started working on different cheat sheets, if you will, for the various roles. You want message takers, information managers, resource managers, volunteer coordinator, neighborhood area assessment. These are some of the roles that you might already have if you'd organized your neighborhood, and you'd say, okay, when the thing happens, just neighbors know one of you's going to have to take these various roles, right? Well, you haven't done that in advance, but you have it now. You can set, when people come up, oh, what can I do, what can I do? You go, God, I don't know. No, you go through your list and say, let's see, what we need right now is a message taker, because we got all these people coming up, we can't keep track of all the messages that are coming in. This is what we need now, but it'll just help you organize in the moment. Okay, now what you might find at a hub, and this again would be a little longer down the road, this isn't going to be in the first 24 or even 48 hours, but it's possible, and this is again where DEM is aware of you and they know you're out there and they know where the hot spots are, what needs to be, you know, where there's a need and where there's gaps. There are a lot of other trained volunteers out there that work alongside NPREP in the emergency management, these other groups. One of them is VCOM, Volunteer Emergency Communications, and these are folks that train on a regular basis on how to use ham radios and how to communicate the right information and when to communicate it. Well, if those folks are available and their neighborhood doesn't need them, or if they make themselves available, they could be dispatched to your hub depending on where you are and where the greatest need is. So you might be able to find a ham operator if you didn't already have one in your area that would come to you. Same thing with CERT team. We have some people that are trained on community emergency response teams. And these are folks that are trained in search and rescue and all kinds of things like that. And again, if there's one area that's been hit particularly hard but doesn't have a lot of person power to get out there with the search and rescue, some of those folks could be sent to this hub. And the same with the Medical Reserve Corps, which is a new organization that's just standing up here in Jefferson County, but they're very active, and there are a lot of retired medical professionals that are credentialed and everything like that. So again, they can be dispatched to hubs as needed. So this is just again what it might look like. It's just one physical. It doesn't have to look like that. Again, it's kind of like the neighborhoods. These are suggestions, but as you can see, it can be pretty simple. And again, we have it set up back here too, so you can kind of get an idea of what it might look like. So the recap is, it's really just the safe place. Again, we use the word evacuate, but I think congregate would be probably a better word there. They would be registered with the Department of Emergency Management. Can be an add-on feature to neighborhoods, and I think it's a very valuable add-on if you haven't already done a communication center. And it's offered by any two-person team. It doesn't have to take a lot of advanced work. So I guess the little question there is, if you're interested, we do have a sign-up sheet if you want to learn more information about the hub and or neighborhoods, really. But that's back here in the back. And did we put one out front as well?
There's one out front. Actually, I had it up there because I was going to wave it around. But
you're good at waving things around. I'm not very good at pen. But there we go. Yeah, so there's a sign-up sheet up here. We'd love to get some more information out to you on that. So next up, Elizabeth, I'll probably need your help here. Now's our time for some good Q&A. Any questions? Jay?
It's not so much a question as just a comment. If you are thinking of creating a hub organization and you want to try to practice, right? In the state of Washington, once a year, we have a day. It's called the Great Washington Shakeout. It's the third Thursday in October. And I don't know if the day was randomly picked, but it's the day we use. And it's a great day to just say, okay, once a year, we're going to give this a try. And the Department of Emergency Management sets up a, they open up the emergency center for that day. Every year we get a little bit better at how to communicate with folks. But it's just, if you try to do this that day, you can give it a try. And also let people in the neighborhood know that you have this.
And just in case it didn't get picked up since we are recording this, thank you, Jay, for that. Was a reminder that there's an annual event. It's called the Great Washington Shakeout, and it's in October, and it'll be well publicized. We'll be pushing it out through all of the NPREP communications. NPREP, it'll be on Nextdoor, Facebook, all that stuff.
That'd be the 15th.
Is it October? Thank you. October 15th. I didn't want to say. Been mistaken.
10:15, it will be at 10:15 in the morning.
Yeah, it's the same time as the date.
At 10:15.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Department of Emergency Management usually has a communications exercise associated with it. So if you are developing hub communications of any kind, you can sign up to participate in that.
But some of our neighborhoods also use the prepared neighborhoods as well as the hubs. Can use that as a day of exercise. I think going back to what Elizabeth was saying was the muscle memory. You can sit around and talk about this stuff in theory all day long, but hey, you guys, let's pretend we just had an earthquake at 10:15 on 10:15. Let's rally, let's see how everybody does, right? And let's go out and exercise going around looking for help and okay signs, and where is our care center? Is it still viable? And, is everybody kind of up to speed? Did everybody find their booklets, and if you have a communication section, tie into the communications exercise. But there's a level of commitment and a little bit of time that this takes, but I think it's important.
And I would just add, there are some neighborhoods that are very active and they have more than one exercise a year, but if you're in a smaller neighborhood or a less active neighborhood, at the very least, the Great Washington Shakeout is a good opportunity and a reminder, just like things that remind you to change the batteries in your smoke alarms, the Great Washington Shakeout can remind you if your neighborhood has been a little less active, it's not a bad time to, it's a good prod, and some things are available to sign up to sort of help you do an exercise like that.
Do you have a question back here? No. One of the things I didn't get a chance to mention, I think it's a good one, is that once we get neighborhoods signed up, if you're new and you want to get signed up, we do offer regular trainings. And we try to address like best practices. We've got some of new energy in our NPREP team to actually want to get neighborhood leads together to just kind of brainstorm what's working, what's not, you know, what's working for you, what can we do differently, that kind of thing. We have some really good best practices too that I like to promote. We have a large neighborhood up by the post office called The Bluff. It's a huge area. They've been organized for years and doing this for a long time, and they've come up with some great practices. And the one I really cotton to is the one they call their portfolio system. And the idea is recognizing that, you know, some of these very organized neighborhoods have a first aid person or team and a search and rescue biz. You know, every function kind of has people assigned to it, which is great. But they recognize those people might not be there that day. They might be in Silverdale. They might be in Las Vegas. Who knows? They might be hurt. So rather than that, they've identified all the jobs that need to be done, and they've documented what that job is, and it's in their bin. And when you open their bin, the first thing is job number one. Whoever shows up first has to do job number one, and here's how you do it. And if somebody else comes and whoever's in job number one is like, I'd be better for that job, you know, you can swap that, but it's a real organized and thoughtful way, and that information we have available, they've shared it. We've had other neighborhoods look at it and modify it for their own needs. But those are the types of supports that we can provide. Want to talk about some of the other trainings?
And I would just say, well, we've like raced through this whole, you know, this is how you do a neighborhood. I don't expect you to go home and say, okay, I'm ready to organize my neighborhood. One of the things about this sign-up sheet is then we'll have your name and information when we are ready to do a more in-depth neighborhood organizer training. And you could, you know, we would want you to bring your co-leads or several people from your neighborhood to spread the word. And it's kind of a train the trainer thing. You know, we'd like you to bring several people, but then we want you to go back and share that with your neighborhood. And you're not going to get all that just from today's discussion. We realize that. So yes, feel free to sign up and indicate whether you would like to get more information, more in-depth information about how to organize your neighborhood or stand up a hub or both. And we have in the past also we've offered specialized trainings. You know, what about water storage? What about food storage? What about, you know, first aid or other needs like that? So those are things that we have done in the past and we can do again depending on the interest and the need. But certainly, first of all, a more in-depth dive into this is how you organize a neighborhood. As Deb or a hub. But as Deb pointed out, also getting other neighborhood leads together is very valuable because what we have is an outline. And we have a suite of what we think are best practices. Not everything works everywhere. And people have great ideas. A lot of people have great ideas. I haven't thought of everything, you know. As long as we've been doing this, we haven't necessarily thought of everything. You may come up with something great or you may learn something great from somebody else. So that kind of neighborhood organizer get together, you know, maybe a brown bag lunch or something and share ideas, not with one of us standing up here telling you, but just sharing what you've learned, what your experience is would be just terrific.
And I will say for the folks that are watching this online later, and you can't sign up today, you can always email us at nprep@l2020.org. There are several of us that monitor that, so if you want to get more information or say, hey, I'm ready to sign up, let me know when your next training is. NPREP. It might be on the last, let's see. Yeah, nprep@l2020.org. And you can also find a lot more at the Jefferson County Department of Emergency Management website on preparedness planning. And for those of you who really like that kind of thing, you can just click on the QR code and it'll take you directly there.
Does that, last link to Jefferson, does that have a PDF of that hub version too?
Yes, it has both, and others, and more.
And Kepi may have some little slips out there with the QR code on it. I think out at her table, she probably has the little slips out there you can take away with the QR code and the link on it.
Yeah, if it doesn't work off the screen.
Yeah.
You could pass that around.
Or we could do
Yeah,
that, or I could just have it at the table.
I was curious how many people sitting here are already in prepared neighborhoods.
Well, that's always a good question, thanks.
I know I am, I was interested in the next steps.
Okay, good.
Yeah, quite a few of us.
Yeah, so,
I have a comment. I live in Town Point, if you know where that is, so we're already a prepared group of people. And you probably remember we had a fire just recently. Okay, so my comment is about momentum and participation. You know, you get so that only 7 people came to our information, meeting about, or 7 households about household preparedness. I believe that the signs and our publication gender some response from people, even if they don't walk into the session. They're more aware. All of our people are more aware of fire safety today than they were a week and a half ago. They just are. And so maybe they're doing their grab and go bag and maybe they're not. But they're thinking about it, and that's the first step. They're ahead of 90% of the people. So when I'm thinking about momentum and the energy to prepare, because I'm on the committee in our little group, in our community, I believe that people are still participating even if they don't walk in and talk to me.
that's a good point, thank you. So the point there was that a fire in one of our local neighborhoods that was recently well advertised really upped people's interest, especially after they'd been seeing all this communication from this newly formed neighborhood organizing group that we need to get ready for emergencies. They got a real eye-opener when one of the houses caught fire and almost caught the whole neighborhood on fire. So that was really good, and it's a terrible thing, but what do they say, never let a good emergency go to waste. But it is, if there's an earthquake or a fire, so it's a wake-up call, and that's another time, if you're trying to get people's interest, you can say, hey guys, that could have been us. What could we do to be more resilient in that situation? And actually, that's how we got started.
I'll let you tell, I was just gonna say, but that's another plug for just having like maybe a quarterly social event, just to remind people, oh, come for tea and cookies. And you're not necessarily gonna have a big program, but just while they're there, okay folks, don't forget to keep doing your household preparedness or doing your grab and go bags.
Yeah. No,
Just to keep that momentum, to keep the momentum going just by staying in touch with people.
Yeah. It's very important. Oh no, it's just that the story of how this all got started was one of the co-founders, my co-founder, had been real involved in a Sister City project post-Katrina. I don't know how many were in town at that time. There was the Sister City with Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, which they're a small arts community on the bay, right, near a very large metropolitan area, New Orleans. And so they had this Sister City project, and a bunch of people went from here down there to help. And of course, you all remember how devastating that was. And they weren't getting a lot of attention because New Orleans and everything else. That's probably what's going to happen here if it hits Seattle. And she came home, she says, man, the devastation. And she said, and they had warning. We might not with an earthquake. They had several days watching this thing come at them. She said, we need to do something. And we do. So that's when we went out and knocked on the door, Department of Emergency Management, and just said, you guys are a pretty small team, is there any way we can help? You know, and we're community organizers, maybe we could help, and Bob Hamlin, bless his soul, invited us in and was very welcoming and shared information, empowered us, and that's why we're here today. So, again, it's the root of everything.
I'd also like to share just a brief story from one of our VCOM members who was in Eastern Washington a couple of weeks ago, and they had an event out there, and he was surprised to find that it was really hard to get information about what was going on. I believe it was a wildfire event, because they've had several out there. And you know, here we encourage people to sign up for Nixle, which are the cell phone alerts, and we hope you've done that. Out there, I think they had something similar, but something like only 10% of the population had signed up for it, so they weren't getting those alerts, most people. They had to notify, actually I think it was 20%, they had to notify 80% of their population who were in an evacuation condition by knocking on their doors, because they knew that only 20% had signed up. And he found it difficult to get information. So all the preparedness that we do, that we tell you which radio stations to listen to, and they work with us to push out those notifications in an emergency, and they work with DEM. All of that stuff is very important, because when he had that experience, he thought, that's how people could feel here. If you were a stranger here and you didn't know this stuff, I mean, he was blind, he was in a vacuum. And it was kind of scary. I mean, he knows a lot of preparedness stuff, but that it was unsettling. And so we're glad, we're lucky that we have so much set up here, so much cooperation with the emergency management and with VCOM and all of that, and with the radio stations. And but you know, we really encourage people to get plugged into all of that, because you don't want to be in a communications vacuum if something happens.
Thank you. Yeah. So I guess with that, any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
My question, what is yo-yo to be?
Oh, yes, like yo-yo in a loop. So when we first started this, Bob, that was another Bob, said, yo-yo, you're on your own. Okay? And so we promoted that for years. You're on your own. And then a few years ago, when we started working with these other partners that we work with at DEM, so like the CERT folks, VCOM, MRSC, all those, we got, well, we're not really on our own. And so we decided we're on our own together. That's what WOOT is. We're on our own together. And it's true. And people always ask, we got some feedback from the recent All-County Preparedness Day. I don't know if anybody got to attend that. It's an annual event we've been doing now for 15 years at least. But it's also kind of done in a celebratory fashion, and initially that was done to attract more people, because emergency preparedness is kind of a bummer topic. Kind of a downer, you know? And we thought we need to inject a little more fun, a little more enthusiasm or celebration, the fact that we're actually doing this, and that's when we hired Danny Milholland of the production lines, what became the production lines, because he knows how to do fun, to attract people to come and actually get the message, you know? And we said, you know, so we said, well, why do this? It shouldn't be a party, you know? It's like, well, yeah, it should, because we can celebrate that we're doing this, that we have these people that care. They take a time out on Saturday, they come out to learn, we're all working together, we're WOOT, we can celebrate. So.
I just wanted to comment that, so I was in California fires, and twice I couldn't get back to my house
Oh, I'm sorry.
to get my animals.
Oh.
So fortunately, everybody survived. But like right now, it's something that goes through my mind. It's like right now, if I can't get back to my house, do I have everything I need? And the answer is typically no, even if I am prepared. But it gave me a lot of thoughts about what I need to take, what's really important, and what I can do exercises from those experiences in the fires.
If I may share, a possible alternative is in our neighborhood, because we went through something similar, several of us in our pasts, what we've done is a trusted neighborhood key exchange program. And so we set that up, and that actually, interesting, that became one of the most popular parts of the program, the thing we got the best feedback from. Thank you, we hadn't thought about that, but basically, who do you really trust, and go share keys. So that if you cannot get home and get to a pet, who might be home that could go over and get the pet for you without having to break into the house to do that. So that proved to be a very effective program, and I thought I'd just share it.
Well, thank you. So we had a couple of comments here. There's somebody here that had two situations where the home burned down, or was in a fire situation and couldn't get home, worried about pets and other precious things. And some of the lessons learned from that. And then another neighbor spoke up that this is one of those good ideas Elizabeth was talking about. We don't have all the answers, but a trusted key exchange, so that you have a neighbor or two that you know has a key. So if you're not home, they know your kitty's in there, or your dogs, or whomever, and they can go in and rescue them. So that's a great idea, great example of that.
Just on pets, in Think Plan Do, there is information for grab and go bags about don't forget about your pets, have a pet emergency kit. And also there is another group that is working on animal services, animal issues, whether it's livestock or pets. So there is a group looking into that, what can be done in this county to help with that. But certainly, if you need to evacuate, hopefully you can take your pets with you. That's the best thing for you and for them, but you need to be prepared to do it.
Right, and the group that Elizabeth was talking about is actually called HELP, and they're actually on the website now. They just put up a new page on Local 2020 Emergency Preparedness. They're right alongside where NPREP lives, and it's called HELP. Check them out. I'm really anxious to hire their webmaster, because they're putting us to shame. Yes?
Will you take a few minutes to balance the spectrum rather than collection, or go to the evacuation site in a wildfire? Because this is all about, collecting, and in a wildfire we're doing the opposite.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that we would be putting up a hub in a wildfire situation, right? Because again, what Elizabeth pointed out, what we mostly practice for and prepare for is sheltering in place. Wildfire is one of those rare exceptions where it's going to be go. So that's really where your grab and go kits, knowing what you have, and in any case, you should always have a car kit, so you at least have your bare minimums no matter where you are. But you can't always have your pets with you. But there's a big difference between evacuation and shelter in place. And so mostly what we're talking about here is shelter in place. Some of the things that you've collected for your sheltering in place, you could probably transfer to a vehicle if you have a plan for that. I mean, we have a small camper van that we don't drive a lot, but that's what we're driving if we have to evacuate, because that's our bug out vehicle, so you can kind of think about it in those terms. It's a little different, very different.
Yeah, I'm thinking an evacuation situation is more likely going to be an individual and family kind of situation, which will be addressed in Think Plan Do. It's more not so much going to be an organized neighborhood thing, because everyone is going to need to know when they need to leave and know what they need to take with them, and you don't want to slow that down or get in the way. So that's going to be more of an individual thing, but we are looking at the things where we would shelter at home mostly.
Right, where there's an exception there, it just popped in my mind, and that would be where if you have a neighbor, because you're organized and you know all your neighbors, and you know your next door neighbor doesn't drive, can't drive, or that one person is away with the car, the only car, and the other person's home without a car. The kids are home alone. In that situation, you would help them with evacuation, but that would be something, again, kind of like your trusted key situation, where you would set that up in advance. And, especially with kids, I know we don't have a lot of kids, they're around, knowing where there might be children at home during the day alone. It'd be nice that they would know all the people who might walk up to the door and say, hey, we got something going on, no mommy and daddy aren't home, but I'm here to help, remember me, that's a real important thing. Yeah? Oh, yes.
Is the DAEM, do they have resources to find out where we could go, to find out in our neighborhoods, if we're gonna be gathering someplace, are we walking into a worse situation, like a landslide, liquefaction, tsunami?
Yeah, there are those resources available. If you wanted to set this up and you kind of have an idea of where you want to go, I would reach out. Might not be us. I mean, if you're worried about wildfire, we would get the community risk manager out there to help you with that situation. The fire department has resources like that. And there are other organizations that DEM works with. They have a lot of geotechs that they work with, the tsunami people. So if they don't have the information readily available, they could find the resource for you. And again, you can just reach out to them, or you can back through NPREP and we can put the request out. That's a good thought, though.
But a lot of it is really going to be dependent on what happens, and that's where tuning into your radio, because as soon as they know, oh, this area has suffered some, well, the whole road is cracked up, or there's liquefied land there, they would announce that.
But it would be nice to know beforehand.
Yes, so I would consult those resources. There are models about the effects of tsunamis, and there are undoubtedly models. I know there's an area near me that is highly subject to soil liquefaction, so.
And there, in the 9.0, we're gonna have a lot of landslides, we're gonna have maybe a tsunami.
Right.
And where we are, we're trapped in between. We got the tsunami comes this way, we got the landslide coming this way.
Oh, no. Okay, yeah.
So,
Yeah, you
we're all
might
gonna
wanna.
meet up on the road, we're gonna get
Yeah,
sandwiched.
yeah. No, that would be a good question to ask, have somebody come out and walk the land with you, just so you have a good sense of.
Are they people that will do that?
I would imagine so. I mean, I don't know that it's come up, but I do know that we have a lot of experts in our community that love to share what they know. They do. I mean, I don't know if you've been to any of our tsunami talks. I always learn something there from those folks. They're amazing. They understand all that stuff, and they love to share. And the same thing with the fire department. And the nice thing there too is they want, rescue is in their name. It's not all fire, it's fire rescue. And they care about the community. And if they don't have the answer, they can probably find it. Not to overcommit, but yeah, I think it's a reasonable request. Anything else?
No, I think with that, I'll be at the back with our demonstration hub site back there. And thank you all for coming. And we'll have this list back there, and there's another one out in the lobby where you can sign up if you want more information about organizing an